Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, we'll be joined by John Mattis, founder of Blacklight Consulting. Now, John is an expert in fraud prevention, asset protection, and financial crime investigations with over 15 years of experience spanning e-commerce, fintech, and omnichannel retail. John serves on the advisory board of the International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators and as an editorial board member for Loss Prevention magazine. Interesting conversation coming up with him. That's right after this word from our sponsors. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. state attorneys general collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. John, great to have you here. Thanks so much for taking some time with us. I'd love to know a little bit about your professional background, how you got to where you are today, how you got involved in organized retail crime prevention. I always have to remind myself to say, not that you're in organized retail crime, but that you're in prevention. So tell us a bit about your background and about Blacklight.
Sure. So I've been in retail my whole life. And I started with Macy's, and I was with Macy's for almost 30 years. In that time, all in investigations. And I ran the ran the investigations group for Macy's, which was everything from internal theft, major crimes against the organization, anything that had to do with an executive investigation, supply chain, digital fraud, all of the above was under my realm.
So what are some of the common challenges that you see retail businesses face when they're trying to target ready-to-buy customers in a saturated market? I don't even know if that's a question that fits fits in line with what you're doing, but what are some of the challenges you see, I guess, when it comes to organized retail crime and how businesses are dealing with it?
You know, the big thing is that the odds are against them, and it's not because that's the way they want it to be. It's just because, you know, they're victim of circumstance. You know, we're in a perfect storm right now, so to speak, in regards to where ORC is in the nation and in the world. And the biggest thing they have against them is most all of the decriminalization that's going on state by state. Not all states, but most of the major impact states, you know, especially California and New York. You know, the odds are against them as far as how they're able to battle against, you know, these threats.
What types of questions do you hear most often from clients who say, "Boy, we need some help sorting this out. We're losing too much money. We're having a real trouble with organized retail crime." And the impacts it's having on our business. What questions do they usually start with you? Is it as simple as like, help us figure out how to sort this out? Or does it get a little more detailed than that?
No, it really does come with help, and, you know, the help in where to start. You know, is it something that I'm doing wrong at the store level, at the region level? Is it a police relations issue? Is it a judicial issue? Is it a government issue as far as how laws are put out there? So it's really all of the above. And, you know, the thing I got to say is the retailers that are doing the work today on ORC are doing an unbelievable job in what they have to deal with. Whether it's just the overall investigative approach, building out their ORC teams, carving out staff within their already limited budget to build out an ORC team. They're doing everything possible. And then they're also confronted by the fact that it's not just what happens in a store or a physical store. You know, there's just as much or not more money that is lost digitally through organized frauds, either through credit card fraud, you know, return fraud, you know, all of the different con games that are going on against the system, gamers. You know, all of it adds up to major loss. And, you know, so I really specialize in working with both retailers and B2B solution providers and being able to work with different companies and be able to answer those questions.
It seems like one of those things that should be so simple, right? When you go into business as a retailer, you're like, I'm going to buy goods and I'm going to price them a little bit higher and I'm going to sell them and I'm going to try to sell them and then I go to them. All the stuff that goes into just like running a business. And in those like fundamental business classes that people take in high school, right, before they even specialize in business, you don't really start to factor in like, all that stuff you just listed.
Yeah.
Theft, internal theft, all of those things that go into it. It just must be like really challenging for your clients to say, I'm really just trying to make a widget and sell a widget here, and I've got to worry about all of this. And then you have to help them navigate that.
Yeah, the basic economic concept of supply and demand are out the window when it comes to organized crime. Or even, you think organized crime, you're thinking about those big door hits that you see on the news, and, because those are the sexy things to see, but it's the everyday pounding that's taking place with retailers and stores. They'll maybe lose a few items, but it's a few items every hour, every day, every week, and it just keeps adding up. The stack, again, the odds are against them with the way we are today, but I really have to put it out there to what the effort that's being done in this overall fight against ORC.
Yeah. As you're working with businesses on dealing with ORC and the impacts thereof, I'm wondering what counsel you have for them when it comes to working with police, first and foremost, with law enforcement to figure out how they can address it. And then secondly, I think you kind of touched on this, that how do you work with policymakers to get the right policies in place so that law enforcement can be effective, so that it all trickles down to helping your business?
Yeah, probably start with policymakers first, because that's where it just trickles down from there. Law enforcement does as much as they can do with, what they're instructed to protect and enforce. But really, organizations like the National Retail Federation, the Retail Industry Leaders Association, those different groups that are able to lobby government on stricter ORC regulations, national ORC laws, the different types of by state laws where you can go after ORC. Even though you had a small amount happen in your state, you can multiply it based on what happened in other states, as long as they are part of the overall coalition. So it's really getting involved, whether you have a government relations team or a public relations team that works with an individual retailer, to be able to get them engaged in the topic. The more retailers and the more companies that are out there that are putting pressure on the policymakers is super important. Listen, at the end of the day, retail is 25% of our GDP. It's 25% of our workforce. And when you think about all of the different things that are going on, and the fact that, and you compound that with the ORC equation, that's why I like to say it's like the perfect storm. Everything is coming together, and not in a good way.
Yeah. How much has this issue changed during your career? Like, as you've watched sort of the start of, we went from sort of theft to now like a real organized crime syndicate trying to go in and use this as essentially a funding mechanism for a larger crime operation. I'd be really interested in hearing how it's changed during your career.
Yeah, I started as a detective, and we're talking like the mid-'80s. Not that ages me, but...
the youngest detective.
It's exactly right.
You're 5 years old.
I like your attitude. But it started as, back then it was, the organized groups that we saw were gypsies, that operated in small groups, but they would hit stores. You knew who they were. They were very recognizable. They hit certain items in the same exact way. And then it panned out to South American groups. And then you just started proliferating from there, but big time. And then when you started factoring in how retail has changed, and you look at the omnichannel effect, and the fact that you have really no differentiation as far as customer, from what your physical customer is to your digital customer. Items that are bought in store could be returned online, vice versa, buy online, pick up in store, same thing in returns. The fact that you're dealing with one inventory in many retailers, whether it's digital inventory or store inventory, it just created so many different ways to steal and defraud a company. So the things that you're seeing today on the news with these massive door hits, where you have gangs come in and they're walking, running out the door with armfuls of merchandise. Yeah, that happens every day, and it's been happening for a very long time. It's getting traction on the news because it's becoming so blatant and so raw. And when you think about it, it has changed in that way. It's just become more sophisticated. I mean, I've worked investigations that are just flat out, sending, a mule that you hire to be able to shoplift in store. They bring it to you, then they go do the same thing again. They're highly, the individuals that are running these organized retail crime operations are highly insulated from investigation or apprehension. All of that risk falls on an individual mule at the store level. Same thing applies digitally. In fact, there's absolutely, if you had to really think about it, there's like zero risk. It's ultra low risk, ultra high reward when you do it digitally with credit card frauds and refund operations and things like that. So it has just become so complex and highly, highly technical. I've run some investigations where it's a digital fraud operation. However, they've hired kids from MIT to work on credit card and gift card account algorithms and CID numbers. So it's really, really gone past what you see every day, and it's become a major, major business.
Every town in America used to have like a little general store or a little corner store or drug store, and then someone figured out, oh, I could do this in a bigger way, take it to scale, and you got Walmart and Target, right? Was it inevitable that there was going to be this arc on like mom and pop crime or small gangs, that someone was finally going to go, hey, I could scale this and figure out how to make it a larger operation? Was it just a matter of like someone finally had that idea or the wherewithal to go make it happen? Did technology play into that? Was it the perfect storm of all of that that got us to where we are today?
Yeah, and it's, people say ORC is fairly new. It's been going on for decades. It's just got the moniker for organized retail crime, but there's always been some type of organized effort to steal and defraud the resale establishment. It's been going on forever, so it's not a new phenomenon. It's getting more publicity, becoming more profitable, and as retailers are constantly on the edge to be able to keep up with the Amazons of the world. Amazon rolls out a new program. Retailers are on a lot of pressure to be able to roll out a similar program because they want to maintain their profit, their market share. So in order to be able to do that, they may roll out a program that's not fully vetted. They know that there's a high level of vulnerability to it. And ORC operators will take advantage of those type of programs that are technically made for the best customers, will be long defrauded and capitalized on by these ORC operators before it ever gets to the good customers. So, it's one of those cause and effect type things. It's really putting a lot of pressure, not only on the asset protection, loss prevention, digital fraud communities, but it's putting a tremendous amount of pressure on your chief revenue officers, your CEOs, your CEFOs, to be able to maintain a safe workplace, but also be able to maintain stock levels, which is very difficult today.
So we're not in a great place today. Would you say we're trending better, or is the problem getting worse faster than we can all keep up with it? Where do you think we are in 5 years on organized retail crime?
Well, it's a loaded question. Unless something drastically changes from a government perspective, as far as how we look at laws, there needs to be law and order. There needs to be pain that is associated with committing a crime. That does not exist today in some states. So what are you going to have? You're going to have individuals who are going to take advantage of the system. No matter what policies you put in place, until there is pain, there is not going to be any impact that's going to be made in just general theft or organized retail crime in general. That's the first place it needs to start. So saying 5 years from now, listen, 2 years from now, it could be way better just as far as enforcing law and order. If there's not, it's going to get worse than it already is, because it's not gotten better in decades. It's gotten progressively worse every single year. It used to be that organized retail crime contributed $25 billion in the United States alone. I've been saying for a long time, and people will tell you that I've been talking about a $100 billion number since 2018. And that's really being conservative, because you have to account all types of loss to ORC. It's not just door hits, it's not just physical theft, it's fraud loss, it's return loss, it's gamers that are out there. It's all different types of things that are happening in order for these bad guys to be able to capitalize on a sort of, the retailers are the victims here. They are the victims. They are the victims of government regulation. They are the victims of relaxed standards. They are the victims of decriminalization, and they're the victims of increased felony thresholds. So when you combine them all together, that's why it's the perfect storm. And the fact that retail in general has such a big impact on our overall economy, that's, one of the big reasons that you see such a tough and struggling economy is because of things like this. It just all adds up in the long run.
You got a new podcast where you're talking about organized retail crime. Tell me about that.
You know what? We talk about organized retail crime, but that's not the basis of it. Tracy, we started a podcast called Securing Success. And basically, we wanted to have a podcast that was different than anything that was out there in the asset protection community. And we wanted it to apply to asset protection, obviously loss prevention, the same thing, digital fraud, cybersecurity, the protection industry. What is something that they all have, what's the shared interest that they all have? Well, they all care about their career and their development, and they all care about advice that they can get on how to be a better leader. And that's what our show is all about. Tracy's all about career development. She's a career-long recruiter in the industry. And, I've been a leader in the industry for a long time. I'm passionate about all the different things that are incorporated with being a good leader. So she does her side, I do my side. We ask questions back and forth. It's a great dynamic. It's totally unscripted. And, we take individuals from different walks of the industry. So whether you're a high-level leader you may see here, or a high-level leader in some of the cyber industry or law enforcement, all of those things have a good, great advice on how can you develop your career to take it to the next step, and what are some leadership things that you could share, some tidbits advice to make me a better leader. And that's what our show is about. Now, obviously, we talk about ORC, we talk about fraud, we talk about all the other things as it comes up just in general conversation, but the basis is really about career development and leadership.
Make sure you tell them the name of the show and where they can find it.
The show is called Securing Success. It's Securing Success. If you Google it, you'll find it on YouTube. We have a LinkedIn channel Securing Success, but we're just getting started. We're going to shoot our 4th, 5th, and 6th episode next week, so we couldn't be more excited.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be just great. I'm sure you're going to pick up momentum as you go. They're always fun to launch a podcast and talk about this stuff, but it's an issue a lot of people care about. That's right. So we appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight with us, and hope people will go check out your podcast as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thanks, John.
it. Great being here.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks as always to our presenting sponsor, LVT. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop one every 2 weeks. You can also find us on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes below. Thanks for being with us as always, and keep up the good fight.